Good morning. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wellness Wednesday. I hope you are all doing fabulous. And I'm so excited to be here for episode 31. So if you are just stumbling on my page, my name is Donna. I am a mom, a nana, a girlfriend, studying to be a personal trainer, working on changing my life. And it started with overcoming not overcoming is a strong word because I guess I have overcome anxiety, but it is a daily work in progress. And wellness is a really important topic and a broad topic that can help everyone if we share our ideas and thoughts on different things that can make us more well and feel better in general. And a lot of that ends up being mindset work. But it has to do with all the things: feeding your body, feeding your brain, feeding your heart and soul, which I talked about just a couple of weeks ago. So again, if you're just stumbling on my page, I invite you to participate in the conversation. Message me or drop a comment if you have a subject you'd like to see me cover, because I do love to learn. Just share with us, because what helps one person may or may not help another. And the more we share ideas about ways to be well and healthy, then the better off we all are, right? We've been talking, a lot of times in Wellness Wednesday. Also, if you're here, let me know you're here. If you don't see this till afterwards, please let me know you watched it by hitting replay or making a comment. A lot of times with wellness, we end up digging into mindset issues because really, mindset is a lot of the underlying things that come with wellness. But sometimes we got to take a break from that because it gets a little intense, right? Last week we talked about meditation. I am still on my meditation streak. I am not going to lie, especially this weekend at the tournament with the crazy weather that we had during our fishing tournament. I struggled a little bit to keep up with the meditation and tried to talk myself out of it a couple of times. But I am still on my streak, and I've actually lost track of where I am. I think I'm on week 6 or 7 of meditating every single day. But like I said, the mindset work can get a little intense sometimes. So today we're going to talk about the body. The word exercise, or the words working out, tend to strike fear in the hearts of many. I am surprised at how many people I encounter on a regular basis that just kind of cringe at the word exercise or the words working out. And there's actually some reasons for that. And there's some ways to get moving before some fun ways to get moving before your brain figures out what you're doing. And I know that's always my joke. I have to get up in the morning and work out before my brain figures out what I'm doing. And I'm going to be honest with you, the last couple weeks, that's been a pretty major fail for me. I am dressed and ready to go when I get done here. I am hitting the pavement for a run because I can feel that my lack of exercise, not my lack of movement, because I've been moving plenty, but my lack of exercise is definitely starting to affect my mood and just my focus and all of those things. So why is exercise scary? Or why are the words working out scary? And some of this is often known as gym intimidation, which is not necessarily specific to the gym, but basically it boils down to these things, and a lot of it's fear. So there's that mindset component again. Fear of the time it takes to work out, fear of injury, fear of judgment, fear of inability in general to work out, or inability to do it correctly, whatever it is, whether it's to run correctly. If you're so busy worrying about studying up on the proper form and the proper shoes and the proper this and the proper that you never even actually get out there to do it, or that you're not going to do the exercise correctly, whatever that is, in a gym or in a group workout setting, that's going to lead to or feed that fear of injury or being judged in what you're doing and how you're doing. Self-comparison, that I know kept me out of gyms and group workout classes for years, that I wasn't going to look like everybody else there, that I wasn't going to be as good as everybody else there. and that everybody was going to be looking at me. That was part of my social anxiety. That it's outside of your comfort zone. A lot of times when people think about exercise or working out, they think strictly about going to a gym or going to a group exercise class, and that you don't have to do those things. But it's also good to do those things because they do take you outside of your comfort zone. And gosh knows we all love our comfort zones. This is where I'm comfortable. This is where I want to stay. I don't know if I want to step out there because what might happen over there? Those people might look at me, or they might make fun of me, or they might. So a lot of times this gym intimidation is not just specific to a gym or a group workout class, but just in general, all these things that make exercise or working out seem scary. So I thought it would be useful, rather than digging into all the reasons that we shouldn't fear the injury or fear the judgment or fear all that, because we've talked about fear. We actually started out the beginning of the year talking about fear. I thought it might be better to talk about ways to get your body moving that don't feel like exercise. In fact, one particular page that I used for this was 40 ways to exercise without realizing it. So now we're back to that, tricking your brain into not realizing that you're doing something that's scary to you so that you can actually do it. So this one will be a little bit fun this morning. So ways to get moving that don't feel like exercise. And the first bullet point I have is to be less efficient. And one of the quotes that I saw when I was researching this was, there were two actually. We spend our whole lives, especially right now with the onset of technology and the way technology keeps developing, we spend our whole lives because our workplaces demand it, our brains demand it, our homes demand it. We spend our whole lives trying to be more efficient. But what if the key to weight loss or health is actually being less efficient? And what do I mean by that? And a lot of these might be more specific to the workplace. And so you may have to get creative, but I thought some of these were really great ideas. A couple I've used before, a couple you've heard before, and a couple are just, hey, that's kind of genius. I would have never thought of that. So park further away, wherever you are, the grocery store, the office, whatever, park further away. We've all heard this, take the stairs, park further away so you have to walk farther. And there are some times that personal trainers or health gurus will debunk that and be like, that's not enough. And you know what? If you're trying to really change your body, they may not be enough in the long run, but they're a great place to start. So be less efficient, park farther away so you have to walk a little further, walk a little longer. Take the stairs so you have to work a little harder instead of the elevator. I know I've been known to do that on numerous occasions. Sometimes I prefer to take the stairs down and then take the elevator up. Just kind of depends on what's going on. This particular one I would have never thought of. In my office, the printer was always down the hallway until the last few months that I was there. Use a printer that's farther away if that's an option. If you're working in a bigger office or a bigger office building and you can send whatever you're doing to different printers of your choice, if there's one that's farther away so that you got to take a little stroll, maybe walk a little farther, get a few more steps to get to it, then that's a great way to just get that little bit of extra movement and get you up out of your chair. Convey office messages in person instead of digitally. Now, this is ironic because I just had a conversation with a friend about the fact that sometimes the more digital you are with messages in the office, especially if there's any kind of conflict or concern about being misunderstood, sometimes digital is better because then there's a record. But if you have the ability to get up and it doesn't turn into a 30 or 45 minute conversation that has nothing to do with work, that actually impedes in your productivity, get up and deliver a message in person instead of by text or messenger or chat or whatever it is you might be using in your office. It's so much. We are just like, let's send a message. Let's send an email. Let's send a text. And those are the things that keep us in our chairs. Those are the things that keep us in our chairs and keep us from getting up and moving. I know at one point in time in my career as an executive officer, during the construction downturn, it was so quiet, and I had gone to part-time, and I spent so much time trying to do like 80 hours worth of work in 40 that I sometimes didn't leave my chair, and if the phone wasn't ringing, I don't even think I blinked for like 2 or 3 hours. And that's actually what started me using a standing desk, because I could feel I was curling into that computer. I was starting to have issues with my back and my hips, and when I ran, my hips would hurt, and it was because my glute muscles were a hot mess from all the sitting. So if I would have thought of, or somebody would have told me to set a break timer on my phone so that I would remember to get up once an hour, to just stretch, move around, even if it meant taking my attention away from the computer or what I was doing and straighten something up, it probably would have made a big difference at that time. So like I said, there are genius ways to just make sure you get up and move during the day. Set a break timer. Like I said, convey messages when it's appropriate in person instead of digitally. Use a printer that's farther away. Use the bathroom on another floor. Now, not everybody has this option if you're working in a small office, but if you're in a bigger office, there may be bathrooms on a couple of different floors, and you can take the stairs, run to the bathroom, take the stairs back down. And it really doesn't have to take a lot of extra time, and it gets your body moving and your blood flowing. Skip the drive-through and walk instead. Now, this is for anybody. If you have to hit that drive-through, whatever that is, whether it's Starbucks, Dunkin', fast food, whatever, park and get out. I know we're always in a hurry, but it doesn't necessarily have to take a whole lot more time to do that. Sometimes actually I have found that if I park and get out and go in, I get my food just as fast as I would if I was sitting in the drive-thru behind 6 other people ordering and waiting for it, whether it's food or drink or whatever. So consider skipping the drive-thru and walking instead when you feel like you can spare the extra 5 or 10 minutes, because I'll bet if you paid attention while you're sitting in the drive-thru, the time it would take, the drive-thrus these days are always much busier, from what I see. And the time that it takes for you to park and get in there and order and get back out, you probably would have still been sitting in the drive-thru or just receiving your food out the window at the same time you're getting back in your car. So consider skipping the drive-thru and walking in instead. We talked about using the bathroom on another floor. If you have the option to walk or ride, if you're in a more populated area and you have the option to walk or do a bike share, instead of riding to work, either with Uber or whatever, or if you're out and about, maybe you're visiting a beautiful downtown area, instead of Ubering, if everything's kind of close together, consider walking to your next destination. And that you can always, when you get tired, you can always hop on a trolley. A lot of times in those more populated areas, they have a few different forms of public transportation, especially if you're in what I guess I would call a tourist destination. So consider walking or riding a bike if you have that option. And another great idea is walking meetings. You can, every meeting, especially around here, and we are not, if you are in Citrus County with me in Florida, this is not a tremendously populated area. There's different options if you live in downtown Inverness or downtown Crystal River. Everything's really close by and you can get away with walking to things. But for the rest of the county, maybe not so much. But if you can have walking meetings, so much of what we do in my area is centered around food. We have lunch meetings, we have dinner meetings, we bring food to board meetings. We meet up with friends around food or drinks. Walking meetings or walking gatherings where you are having conversations and actually getting activity, just walking next to each other, are a great way. So if you're in a smaller building and you can't just walk downtown and grab something to eat or whatever, and you have a meeting with somebody, maybe you can do laps around the building, and talk about what needs to be talked about. You actually might be surprised at how much better, good morning, Miss Danielle, how much better your brain flows and the ideas flow if you're not laser focused on food and worried about what the other what the other person thinks about your chewing. So standing desks, you heard me touch on that a little bit. I've been using a standing desk, and I even use a standing desk here at my home office since 2010. My first standing desk was my boyfriend at the time built a build-on to my existing desk so that I could move everything up. And it was because of all that time I was spending sitting and the problems I was having with my hips and my back. And, way before Home Builders Association executive officer status, I came from retail grocery. So everything I did was stand all the time. And when I first started standing at my desk again, I thought, well, I'll keep this chair here just in case I need to sit down for a few minutes or take a break. You know what? My body reverted to training and I never sat down again unless I was at work and not feeling well. Or in a lunch meeting. I stood all the time. I've been standing at a desk in some form or fashion since 2010. And it has made a huge difference. But if a standing desk isn't an option, and there's a lot of different types out there. There's Veridesk makes a great apparatus that you can get that sits on top of your desk that's adjustable, so you can sit when you need to or stand when you need to. And your computer items, your desk is essentially contained in this item that can be lifted or lowered. The standing desk I have now is mechanical. I don't know how long it's going to be mechanical because I never adjust it, but it has 2 or 3 settings where I can set a standing and a sitting version. I've had it for over a year and I've never used the sitting version. And then if that's not an option, there are active sitting chairs and yoga balls that you can use to sit on to help work the core. So these are ways that you can actually keep your body moving and kind of get exercise without actually setting up and planning a 30 or 45 minute workout. They also have little under the desk bikes that you can pedal while you're sitting there. So there are some really creative ways that you can get moving in the workspace, in the office, even if you're working from home. I feel like almost working from home can be more difficult because you're more inclined to just crawl out of bed and throw on your robe and grab a cup of coffee and go to the desk and not ever actually think about doing anything else first. So some other ways outside of the workspace that you can get your body moving without your brain knowing what you're doing. Use a basket instead of the cart at the store. I thought this was really interesting. It's what they call incidental exercise. So if you don't have if you don't have a big load, you can always grab the cart or the basket instead of the cart. Even if you do have a big load, the great benefit of this is it can keep you from overbuying. If you have a specific list of things you need to buy, if you are only going to end up buying what you can fit in that basket, you are less likely to buy things that you shouldn't be. You're more likely to stick to your list. So there's a couple of different benefits here because there's a possibility you're going to spend less. You're going to stick closer to your list, and your list is probably healthier than what your end grocery trip looks like. I know mine often is. Because if I start wandering and adding things, impulse buys as I'm walking by, usually anything that I add to my cart or my basket that isn't on my list is probably not the healthiest option, unless it's just random non-food items. But when you're carrying that basket, the heavier it gets, the more you're working your arms, you're working your core to maintain posture while you're carrying it, to keep from leaning over. You can swing it back and forth between your hands if it gets a little too heavy here. And it is a great way to get incidental exercise instead of leaning on the cart and wandering around slowly and then putting way more things in your cart than you really need. Another great one is to squat instead of bending over to pick things up. Now, I have a little story about this. Every time I help Eric do yard work outside, the next day, this left hamstring is so sore and so tight. And I've never been able to figure out what it was. Well, about a week ago, I was counting and organizing numbered ping pong balls. I won't go into why, but I was counting and organizing numbered ping pong balls. And so I was dropping the ones I didn't need on the floor so that I could organize them in sets of 10 later. And I'll be darned if the next day I didn't have that same sore left hamstring. So what I discovered is that when I bend over, I'm bending over and I'm bending down with my right leg and I'm kind of lunging forward, but I'm keeping this leg straight. So I'm bending enough to get me closer to the ground, but I'm still keeping this straight, and it's putting a lot of strain on my left hamstring when I do that. So when I saw this, I had to giggle because I'm like, Donna, you should be paying attention here to what you're researching. Squat instead of bending over. We all know how great squats are. They do great things for your legs. They do great things for your butt. But when we bend over like this and we don't squat properly or bend our knees, we are setting ourselves up at risk for lower back injury. And that's something I've learned a little bit about in the last few weeks myself. So if we're bending over, if we have to bend over to pick something up, instead of bending over, if we squat, then we're engaging our core, we're protecting our lower back, and we're getting that movement and that muscle use in the legs, and it's incidental exercise. So I promise it's going to take a little bit of brain retraining, but the next time I'm helping Eric with yard work, there will be more squatting and less bending over, and hopefully that hamstring, maybe all my legs will hurt just from, the good kind of pain from being used instead of the one tight hamstring on one side because I wasn't bending over properly. So squat instead of bending over to pick things up. Stretch before you get out of bed. If you know that once your feet hit the floor that you're going to be all over the place and that you're not going to take the time, do some extra stretching before you get out of bed. I have been known to do that, especially some specific calf and ankle stretches and exercises. And that way you can get your stretching in and help your muscles kind of wake up and move before your feet hit the floor and you get too busy to pay attention to it. Let's see. We talked about squatting, stretching, walking meetings. You can do calf raises while you're standing in line. These are great. And I actually for years did do these and then just kind of got away from it. You're standing in line at the grocery store. You're standing in line. You decided to get out of your car at the drive-thru and you went inside instead and you're standing in line or waiting for your food. And you can be doing this. And yes, is there a possibility people might look at you like, what the heck is she doing? Yes. Does it matter? No. And even when you're working at a standing desk, you can be doing your calf raises. Make sure you stretch your calves afterwards. Dance for no reason. Just put on a dance party. I have a colleague who has a daughter, and they do house cleaning dance parties. And when she time blocks her calendar, that's actually what she puts on it. So you can just put on some music and dance yourself around, or while you're cleaning, which means you're moving anyway, if you put on some upbeat music, you might be surprised at how much faster you move. If that's not something you're doing already, how much faster you move because you're bouncing around while you're doing the cleaning things, even if you're just sorting out papers or piles like I've talked about a couple of times. Put on that music. I know years and years and years ago, I used to work for a movie store, and Real McCoy, I think, was the name of the group. I'm not sure if I'm saying the name of the group right. I don't think it was Real McCoy. It was something else. That could have been it, but they were very upbeat, kind of 90s electronica, if you will, a little bit. And it was just really upbeat. And when it came time to get things cleaned up and close down the store, we would crank that up and we would just get everything done so quickly, and we would have fun while we're doing it. So dance for no reason, or have a house cleaning dance party, especially if you have kids. I think this is a genius idea. Is instead of calling it cleaning the house or doing your chores, let's have a house cleaning dance party. Put on that music and get through your tasks while you're having fun and moving your body a little bit more than you might have otherwise. And then, of course, there's that thing that adults do. We're not going to say it because you never know when a child may stumble across my Wellness Wednesday Live. But that thing that adults do, that's really healthy, gets your body moving. You know what I'm talking about. And I had to giggle because that's kind of the way I saw it put on one of these pages I was using to research. And it just made me chuckle because it was just like, that thing adults do, go do it. You know the benefits, self-explanatory. That's all I have to say about that. All right, so real quick, before we wrap up, some active family activities that can get everybody moving without feeling like exercise and actually increase family time or couple time, besides that thing we just talked about, and get everybody moving, and possibly your brains too. Okay, so active family activities, climbing. You can climb on trees, you can climb on rocks, you can climb on playground equipment. You can find a place that has the rock climbing walls. You know, when I was a kid, rock climbing walls weren't a thing. I lived far away from most parks and the school's jungle gym. So my jungle gym was fallen trees in the woods. I was hopping up on stumps and I was walking and balancing on trees, and just anything that I could step up on and do something different on, because I was a very active child. It's a great way to stay active and have fun. It's play exercise, if you will. So trees, rocks, playground equipment. I know some parents are afraid to let their kids climb on trees. My grandson, he just climbs all over everything. So climbing as an adult or as a child, these are great things. You guys can climb together. If you're walking in a forest on a trail and you find logs, you know what I mean? These are things that adults and children can do alike. Geocaching. Geocaching is a lot of fun. I haven't done it in a while, and I've been wanting to take my grandson, so it is something I'm going to start looking into. But geocaching is a lot of fun. It's a great way to get out there as a family, to be looking for things. It's a scavenger hunt type thing. If you've not heard of geocaching, send me a message or drop a comment and I'll explain a little bit more about it. But it can be a lot of fun. It's kind of like a little treasure hunt, but it gets you out in the woods. It gets you into great different places to check out and explore outside, walking, having good family time, kind of like a little scavenger hunt. A lot of times the caches, are things where you can leave something and take something, or they're a little notebook where you can sign that you found it. So it's definitely something worth looking into, especially if you have kids of any age. Like my grandson is 6. It's time. It's time. If I want to go geocaching, this is a great time, especially summer. It's lighter longer, to start getting them out there. We'll start with easy ones that are easy to find and then work our way up once he gets the hang of it. Roughhousing. I know there's probably different schools of thought about this, but roughhousing with your kids, playing around, playing tag, things like that, with each other, it can be a lot of fun, and it's definitely a great way to get moving. And then live action role playing. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about something like Dungeons and Dragons, and that's what a lot of people think when they think of live action role playing. But that's not to say that Dungeons and Dragons can't be a perfectly great opportunity to do live action role playing. Live action role playing, that's the stuff, I'm not afraid to tell anybody, I'm 49 years old. Live action role playing was what we did. We got swords and we put on cowboy hats, and I know some of that's not considered culturally appropriate anymore. But we got out there and we played in the yard and in the woods, and we pretended to be princesses and princes and whatever, fairies. We pretended to be all these things, and we not only were moving our bodies and maybe wearing costumes and doing all these things, but we were using our imaginations. And that's really super important, especially in this day of technology where kids are spending so much time on the screen, and not for nothing, so are adults. We are on our screens all the time while we're sometimes telling our kids not to be. So if you can all get out there and, play superheroes or whatever, the things that kids normally do, adults can do it too. And you can get out there as a family outside, and do some role playing so that you're having a little bit of fun. You're bonding with your family, and you're using your imagination and moving your body. And that's the last activity I have for family activities, of course, walks, bike rides, anything like that, to get moving without worrying about that gym intimidation, or without your brain figuring out that you're exercising, until you realize how much better you feel when you move more. And then maybe that'll just kind of gradually start you down a path of, it's time to work out. Okay, so something to remember before I let you go. The difference between sitting and leaning versus pacing and fidgeting can translate to about 350 calories a day. Because at the end of the day, as much as what you eat and how you eat it may make a difference in weight loss, the underlying key to weight loss has always been burn more than you take in. No matter what, and yes, the quality of the food you take in eventually matters, but if you're just trying to get moving and you're just trying to be healthy, the difference between sitting and leaning versus pacing and fidgeting can translate to about 350 calories a day. When I was in high school, I took psychology and sociology. This is kind of where all this started for me. I want to say it was my sophomore or junior year, and that was back when psychology was a whole semester and sociology was a whole semester. So they were full year class between the two of them. And our psychology teacher gave us a neurosis test, paper test that you had to take to figure out how neurotic you were. We're talking old school here, y'all. I just said I was 49. So I was the second most neurotic person in the class, and nobody was surprised by that. And we all knew who the first most neurotic person was going to be. But I remember that a lot of the questions on that test had to do with tapping or wagging your foot and all these different physical things that we now try to medicate children for. All these different physical things, these movements, because we couldn't sit still because we were kids. And, because yes, and at the high school level, I probably had some anxiety. Most kids do when they're going through puberty. At that time, I was probably already operating under a functional depression, anxiety situation. So I was moving a lot. It was very hard for me to sit still. I frequently didn't necessarily do it in a disruptive way. A lot of times it was my foot tapping on the carpet under the desk or wagging back and forth. I would fall asleep. My daughter used to do it too, wagging my foot. There was always some movement going on. So keep that in mind. I'm not suggesting you start tapping on everything and driving your coworkers, or your housemates nuts because you're tapping and you're fidgeting. But that pacing, that fidgeting, that can actually make a difference in 350 calories a day, up to 350 calories a day. So just remember, like I said when I started, the more we spend time trying to be efficient, the less we're moving. So maybe the real key to health and wellness and weight loss is to be less efficient. So I hope you found that helpful. It was kind of fun for me. Facebook is weird some days. I've only seen one eyeball this whole time. I know Danielle was on. So if you did see this and you enjoyed it, let me know. Share it if you think it will help somebody. And if you asked a question or made a comment and I didn't answer, it's because I didn't see it, because my screen's pretty much blank today. But I hope you found this helpful. And I hope, if you would like to see, any of the links that I worked with that have more ideas of how to get moving without your brain knowing what you're doing, drop a comment and I will send you a message with those links. And thank you so much. And I'll see you next Wednesday. In the meantime, be well. Talk to you soon. Bye.